All right. How's it going this morning? Another episode of Going Parabolic. We've got some folks from IndyCare. I'm about to let them in the room. Hello.
Hey there.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. Welcome. Who do I have on the phone?
This is Franklin. Let me correct this name there so it doesn't call me IndyCare. And then I see Greg's phone number up there. So I'm Franklin, and then I see Greg's number on there. Greg, are you just on the phone?
Yeah, I'm on the phone, guys. I'm traveling, but how's everyone doing?
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys getting on Zoom. I've been locked in my basement since March 18th. So I've had to set up like a mini sound studio so I could do phone calls. My cell phone doesn't work. So first and foremost, how do you guys know Scott Wingo?
Greg, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we got introduced to Scott, through Ted Zoller and also just the entrepreneurial network, essentially. There was a gentleman, that works at Dual Boots Partners, and he introduced us to them. And so we just met Scott, very, very recently.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm good friends with Scott, and Scott's been a fantastic entrepreneur, had massive success. I'm also an investor in his new project. So, not many businesses have escaped the COVID-19 kind of pandemic and some of the recession, et cetera. So hopefully you guys navigated these last 3 or 4 months well and have done okay.
Interesting, Jason. It was kind of a punch in the gut, definitely at first, for us, because as a combined bit of urgent care, preventative health, all of those patients went away overnight, 80% of them effectively. And we're still a pretty new practice, so we were still on the uptrend and kind of building up our patient base. So yeah, that happened, but we just went on an intensive hunt to find solutions for COVID-19, starting with PPE, which took me to all corners of the globe to get that for us so we could, potentially do some things. Then, to tests, hunting those down and being able to get those, and then, everything to do to kind of totally transform the practice to become a really like a COVID-19 testing center, which we're the only one in Orange County outside of UNC Hospital.
Interesting. So before we jump into the weeds with, what is IndyCare, maybe tell me a little bit about yourselves and what you're doing, because I jumped on your website. I wasn't even sure if it was the right website. Looks like your clinic is adjacent to a pharmacy. It looks like it's in Hillsborough, North Carolina. It looks like you've got a staff of FNPs or APPs, and this is a world that I know pretty well.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Yeah, so I'll start with with me. So Greg Vasi, I kind of come from a world of pharmacy. My great grandfather is a pharmacist. My sister's a pharmacist. My wife's a pharmacist. Both my in-laws are pharmacists. And so for me, the passion is pharmacy and trying to expand that world and kind of reinvent it, if you will, from the brick and mortar. So Franklin and I both met each other at UNC Pharmacy School. I went ahead and, after graduating, started my own pharmacies and kind of, did that a few times. And at one point I had 7 pharmacies, and now I am with a network called CPESN, which is kind of pharmacies looking to expand into services. There's probably close to 3,000 of these pharmacies across the country. I'm the lead luminary for North Carolina. We've got over 200 of those pharmacies, and then we just do a lot within pharmacy. And so I also opened up a couple urgent cares, not operating them, but essentially own the real estate for them in Chapel Hill and Pittsboro. and saw that model and said, okay, well, let's see what we can do, if we can shrink this and actually drop it into, rural areas and kind of, be able to kind of operate this thing leanly. And that's kind of where we are now with what we're doing. And then Frank, what about you?
So what is your
yourself?
role though in the Indy Health company? I want to understand the hierarchy. So are you the CFO, COO, CEO? Where are the docs? Where are the FMP?
Yes, right. So I'm CFO. I've got a kind of an accounting background as well. And so my role is, looking at expenses, looking at the operating model, just making sure that we can, do things and financially be successful.
Yep. Got it. And you, Franklin?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO. Quick on my background. Greg left out the part where we had about 9 jobs together by the time we graduated. You can see everything from interns at GlaxoSmithKline to bouncers at the Jersey Shore, and a lot in between. So we have a really long partnership and friendship that goes back more than 20 years. That being said, when I left pharmacy school, I bolted, went to New York City, worked for GlaxoSmithKline there for about 5 years in commercial roles, marketing, sales training, account management, before shifting, and I went overseas to Asia, first with a small consulting firm called the Nucleus Group, working on helping biotech pharma clients with market access, planning, how to launch and bring new drugs to the market scientifically. And then after about 5 years of that, I switched and I worked as the commercial lead for PPD in Asia Pacific for 5 years on growing their business there with Asia-based biotech and pharmaceutical companies in the clinical trial, phase 2 through 4, and regulatory consulting space. That was before Greg spent about 2 years working on me and trying to convince me to come back and join forces with him and start IndyCare, which he finally was successful in doing.
Very cool. Okay, so let's dive into it. Like, why IndyCare? When did you start it? And what's the vision?
Yeah, so we started working on this in 2017, more just laying down concepts, trying to understand feasibility. In 2018, April, I moved back to the US from Singapore to do this full time. And then we soft launched the first clinic in April of last year, and then we fully opened in August of last year. And so what IndyCare is a retail health and wellness center that's located within independently owned community pharmacies. And what IndyCare does to those pharmacies is really transform them into community health hubs that provide technology-enhanced collaborative care on demand and a bridge really between healthcare consumerism and value-based care.
So this is Minute Clinic in independently owned pharmacies.
Yeah, I would say Minute Clinic on steroids. And the reason I say that is twofold. One,
don't they have steroids at CVS?
Yeah, not those kind of steroids.
Who knows?
But yeah, so I think Minute Clinic and the other versions of that, Walgreens and et cetera.
Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart have done a good job of a couple things. One, bringing the idea of medical care from your pharmacy to the masses, right? And gaining wide acceptance for that concept. But if you look at what they've done to date, now CVS is pivoting, and so is Walgreens, if you saw their announcement last week. It's been very low acuity, convenient care. The primary visit reason that they've had.
I think what you're referencing is Village MD got like $1 billion investment from Walgreens. 250 million is going to corporate. 750 million is going to open like 500 clinics across the country. Go Village MD.
That's right. And I think what they're aiming at is more of a primary care model as opposed to the sort of convenient care model that they've had in the past in their clinics.
Do you guys know anything about Village MD? terms of how many clinics they actually run? They represent that they have like 3,000 clinics or something like that.
Yeah, Greg, maybe you want to take that one. I know you were looking at them pretty heavily last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're based out of Texas, and then they've got two different models. One is Village Med, which is what basically they started with, and then the Village MD is kind of more of the primary care light, which they're trying to drop into, the Walgreens.
Yep. Yeah. So I was thinking that they have probably a core amount of clinics. It's not 3,000. And then they have a bunch of relationships consulting, and they've just packaged them all up into this mammoth kind of package because, when I started FastMed back in 2000, there were probably 5,600 urgent cares in the country and 10 groups that had 3 or more. So just to give you guys how it was so fragmented, and I had 127 clinics. So, just in terms of what was going on in that 15-year run, for someone to say they have 3,000 clinics is kind of a little much. But anyway, that's what they said.
Yeah, so I think that the main question though, Jason, is like, why does this matter, right? That IndyCare is in this, and we're in independent pharmacies.
We have a question before you begin, because I've always thought that pharmacists were underutilized in regards to their scope. Like, when I did internal medicine at Womack Army Medical Center back in 1996, we had a pharmacist on our team, and like everything I did, like pharmacy to dose, they really were involved in patient care. And then you get into like the clinical setting, and most people just think pharmacists are counting pills. And if you have a question about your prescription, you ask the pharmacist. Like, I'm quite shocked that pharmacists don't treat diabetes, don't test insulin, and they may.
You've nailed it. Right. So this is what we unlock here, right? So yes, pharmacists are highly trained, right? Doctors, in their own right.
Yeah.
And all of that knowledge, all of that training is mostly unutilized.
Yeah.
And there's a few reasons for that. One is they're not recognized as providers, right? And so there's no mechanism in our healthcare system to pay them for taking care of diabetes, for helping manage patients. And
all endocrines, like you just think about, man. I think the book was, was it Subscription for Health?
Prescription for
for Who wrote that? It wasn't Malcolm Gladwell. It was
it wasn't Malcolm Gladwell. It's an older one. It's about 10 years old. That book.
Christensen.
Yes.
I mean, look, great book. You've read it, obviously, but it's like 75-80% of healthcare that we deliver is like CLIA wave dipstick, plus or minus. Really, and I'm not trying to dumb down a pharmacist, but imagine if you want to find out if you're pregnant, you take a pregnancy test and gosh, you look at it as a pharmacist. It gets deeper than that. But man, that's just, there's no mechanism for you to charge someone for that.
Yeah, you're right. And so here's the thing, right? In North Carolina, let's take, right, the data from North Carolina Medicaid, which is obviously a high complexity patient group. Their average visits to primary care a year is 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Their average visits to their pharmacy a year is 28, 30 times. So there's all these opportunities, right, to engage and to
coordinate care.
That person's care plan and their solution that go unused. And so what we're trying to do is turn that on inside the pharmacy. And the way you turn that on is you bring the provider in, and now you have all the ingredients you need to deliver care and to get paid for it, right? Because you need an MPI, you need a contract with the insurance company, you need an EHR with interoperability, and you need, staff that can do the work. So what we do is kind of bring that in and turn that on in the pharmacy and weaponize them as part of the care delivery solution. And that's critical for independent pharmacies right now, because their main business obviously is product, right? And that business is getting squeezed year after year after year on the margin side.
Yeah.
And they need, and that's why the network that Greg referenced, the Community Pharmacy Enhanced Services Network, CPESN, has been created, because they're all looking for ways to get out of the product bucket only and get into the care delivery service bucket, and to get,
can you help me understand something? Because back when CVS stopped selling tobacco, that had to be somewhere between 2012 and 2015. I can't remember exactly. I wrote a paper, and I got in trouble actually from the private equity firm sponsor of FastMed because of it. And I literally took a shot at the CEO and said, "Hey, stop taking a victory lap because you're not selling tobacco anymore at CVS, because you've got 250 other SKUs that are leading to diabetes. You sell beer, you sell wine. Give me a break."
Yeah.
Tell me now, 2020, how important are those 300 SKUs compared to selling drugs, prescription drugs and over-the-counter drugs, durable medical equipment, or having an urgent care inside your space? Because you only have so much space. Do you sell Doritos? Do you sell crutches? Do you sell medicine?
So you want to sell the services on just a retail healthcare on a per square foot revenue basis is much more lucrative than that other stuff, right? Because that other
sell
stuff.
Medicine?
You mean like over the counter medicine?
Again, sell Doritos, sell medicine, and I'm talking about medicine having the ability to prescribe and treat. So putting in an urgent care.
Right.
Right?
Okay, so that's what you mean by
counter.
sell medicine. Yeah, gotcha. Yes, sell medicine definitely, because all the other stuff, I mean, your vitamins, you get them on Amazon, right? Your Doritos, you can get them in, like all that other stuff. It's just easy to get it elsewhere. It's more convenient. It's cheaper. So yeah, and these independent community pharmacies, they never, stocked all those things.
Can't.
But they have a lot of low performing square footage in their pharmacy, gift cards and all these trinkets and things like that. And we only need about 500 square feet to turn on an IndyCare inside of there. So
and tell me what an IndyCare looks like. Because again, I may have incorrectly thought it's a minute clinic, because a minute clinic is like one exam room, two exam rooms. The FNP has to do like the patient sign in, patient triage, patient treatment, and then collect the fees. I mean, it's not a great job, to be honest. And again, I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
So this is just my opinion.
Well, it depends, right? So it is like that here at IndyCare. The FNP does do all of that, but the process we have to get it done is, we use a ton of technology to make it really easy.
Yeah.
And the providers we have, they don't find it troubling at all. In fact, they love it, because they're sort of, they're like the command center, a lot of times. Now you got to find the right.
But you haven't found that there's always this kind of disharmony when you marry or put a provider very close to money?
No, we haven't had an issue with it. We really haven't.
Interesting, because my experience has been that providers, APPs, doctors, they want to treat patients. They don't want to deal in transactions.
Yes.
My experience. Two, if given that situation, they're not economically incented per se, unless it's perverted. And this is where I really don't like medicine. When you put like RVUs in place, like they do in the emergency room, and they say, okay, you're the kind of gatekeeper of our revenue, because if you don't order the test, I don't get paid. So I'm going to share in the spoils of testing and ordering with you. And that's just gross. Like, I hate it.
Yeah. So we definitely don't do that. Now what we do is usually all of the information, the insurance, the credit card on file is all captured before the person walks in the door.
Mm-hmm. Through a sign-in, like portal?
Yeah, it's all done. It's all can be done remotely.
That's
and
awesome.
Not even through a portal, actually, because when we looked at, our expectations of this, we realized that having someone have to log in with a username and a password to do the things you want them to do before they arrive is, you're going to lose a ton of people.
Yep.
that way. So we really focused on solutions that wouldn't require that, and then were much simpler.
And did you guys, are those in-house solutions, or you just find something that
They're
works?
not. We scoured the market to get sort of the right combination of things, because it's interesting. You have these buckets of solutions. Well, you know how it works in the technology space, right? You build an application or software to solve a very, very, very specific problem, right? And then over time, you might expand the problems that you solve with that software. So in healthcare, that's kind of how things have worked, where you have applications that solve appointment booking,
Yep.
applications that solve registration, and applications that solve telemedicine. And so unfortunately, there's not a lot of effective crossover between them at this moment in time.
Yeah. So just to cut to the quick,
Yeah.
I don't know, 1 in 5, 1 in 3, 1 in 10 patients are in Epic. And are you using Epic?
We're using Athena, and one of the reasons we use Athena, because again, with our model where we're using the pharmacist as part of the care team, they got to have access to those records. So Athena has done a nice on the back end with Epic, Allscripts, Cerner, eClinicalWorks, to where we see all of that from within our
That's cool.
EHR. So as soon as someone's registered, it activates everything from UNC, everything from Duke just drops in, and you can see it all right away. So that's been a major help.
Okay, so cool. So you're using Athena, and that's a very robust EMR for what you're proposing. So that's pretty interesting.
Well, the other reason we use Athena is because of its kind of open API structure that they have.
Yeah.
And so we're able to easily plug in those other pieces of the pie that we need, right? The scheduling, sure, the appointments, the remote registration, telemedicine, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about are bidirectional interfaces, and those interfaces are critical. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness that you guys are taking to have that interconnectedness, because there you really provide value if you take this community coordinated care approach, value-based approach, and you're participating in the patient's care. It's not like asynchronous, where most of this is today. It's getting better, but my impression is most of it is still pretty asynchronous unless you're in a hospital system. So that's really cool. So what type
the other thing is, I mean, with the pharmacy, they already have a delivery team. And so, we can also get into the home, with utilizing, an already established carrier system, if you will.
Yeah, I saw that on your website. That's pretty cool that you guys not only deliver medicines, but you could potentially deliver a laboratory test or do a laboratory test in a patient's home as part of your telehealth program. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we kicked that off last season with the flu as a way to say, look, I mean, it was kind of interesting pre-COVID that but it was like, all right, look, if you're sick, stay home, you know, and we can get not only the telemedicine, but get you tested at home and get you treated at home and stop you from potentially going out and spreading it. So as we move into this fall with COVID-19, it'll be interesting to see if we can flex that model and expand it to not just test flu, but also COVID at home, depending on how the pipeline of antigen tests develops in the next few months.
How many sites do you guys have?
So we're still just the one. We actually were scheduled to open our second one, which was really going to be a flagship in October. But the owner of the pharmacy, that deal was supposed to be signed the second week of March. And second week of March, I think we all know what happened. So it's been, they're still moving forward, but we've just had to kick the can down the road a little bit because they obviously have to figure out their own business and, pivoting and surviving through COVID and everything like that. So
do these independent pharmacies actually carve out space for you to put the IndyCare location inside?
Yeah, I mean, we have to obviously do an assessment of any candidate, right? That they've got the space requirements, they've got the psychographics of your ownership in terms of their commitment to being in care delivery. they've got the demographics that we need. They've got the opportunities to collaborate with primary care. So we really look at all of those things across the board at a given location to understand if they've got the right mix to make it work.
How do you avoid stark and fee splitting and kickback and all those things? Because it sounds a little sketchy.
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Well, I'll tell you this, that was a big chunk of our original investment into this was to the attorneys.
Yeah.
To create a validated pathway that's compliant with all of those.
So you guys have solved that. I don't want to get into the weeds with it, but you've thought about it and solved it. So there's no skeleton in the closet that's going to jump out at me.
Exactly.
Right. So when just to play a game with you, I'm an APP working in IndyCare, and I prescribe a drug. Do I have to put three different pharmacies on there and hand them directions, and then they go to the pharmacy that's right next door, but I can't direct them there? Is that the game?
You cannot direct them. You can simply ask them, where would you like to have this filled?
Yeah. I know enough about this.
Yeah. Can't direct them, but you can ask them. Right?
Even though you're inside the building.
Yeah. They think of it as the lens crafters, model, where you go into see, a optician and you're in the lens crafters, or where are you going to get, your eyeglasses,
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of what was described to us.
I understand. Walmart's the same way, right? If they have a Walmart clinic there and you have a Walmart pharmacy, they may have solved the ownership differently than you guys have, but I just want to understand where you are in the evolution.
Sure.
No, that's really cool. So it sounds like there's a huge opportunity for growth in independent pharmacies. It sounds like, Greg, you're involved in that in a big way.
Yeah, I'm trying to, talk with payers now, looking at contracting, particularly with value-based medicine, and collaborating with, primary care physicians and others to really kind of get pharmacies away from that lick, stick, pour mentality and more in front of the counter to do more clinical consults and other things. And also with preventative medicine, really taking charge of, how do we kind of solve some of these things that leads to larger healthcare problems and the total cost of care.
Right. That's pretty cool. What services do you guys offer at IndyCare Clinic?
So we offer the urgent care. We offer preventative screenings, physicals, health checks, vaccinations. We do the collaborative care. So that when I say collaborative care, what that is our pharmacists and our provider as a team doing enhanced services that support what the primary care doctor's care plan is for the patient. So good examples of that are Medicare, has all of these defined enhanced services like chronic care management, transitional care management, remote patient monitoring, that they have designed to be ancillary touch points and engagements with patients outside of your regular scheduled follow-up with your PCP. Uptake on those programs is in the low single digits currently among primary care, and that's because they're stretched. They don't have the bandwidth to add these extra programs, to add these extra visits with the patients. So we take it on at the pharmacy. And so we're doing transitional care management right now. Patients discharged from hospital, a warm handoff back to their primary care provider. We're doing chronic care management right now, where those people are being engaged each month on their diabetes care plan, their congestive heart failure care plan, et cetera. So that's kind of our collaborative care model. And then the fourth one is we just look at unique kind of unmet needs in a given community. So for example, here in Hillsborough, we've got a big sportsplex here that's got ice hockey leagues and things like that. We've got a few senior living facilities that deal with a lot of falls. So we're getting into concussion medicine, for example, and the ability to use, on-demand EEG diagnostic of a concussion to meet that need. So there's interesting little niches that you can find in a given area that are kind of unmet, and we can do simply and conveniently.
So what do you guys want to do in terms of like growth? Do you have any, I'm sure you thought about it. What does it growth look like for?
Yeah, so it's a franchise model, IndyCare, where your pharmacist, your owner of your pharmacy, can become a franchisee. And there's a few reasons for that. One is you need the pharmacy, right, for this to work. So they have to be vested and bought into the success and the profit and of the entity. Two, it's also allows us.
What does the franchise model look like
Yeah,
economic?
yeah. So IndyCare is a franchisor. We charge a upfront franchise fee that gets the pharmacy access to our systems, our contracts at the medical group level, our technology platforms, obviously the trademarks and branding and all of that. And then there's a royalty, monthly recurring royalty on their top line revenue.
Got it. I mean, is the fee proprietary? I mean, can you tell me, like, if I wanted to franchise an IndyCare and I owned a pharmacy, can you tell me what that would cost me?
Yeah. So our early, our initial kind of early adopters fee is $55,000.
Right.
We see that going to $75,000 eventually.
Okay.
Yeah. That gets you in the game.
And then there's some type of a licensing fee that I pay annually.
It's paid monthly.
Monthly, excuse me.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's paid monthly, a royalty, which is 7%.
Got it. And is 7% of revenue or 7% of collections or
Collections?
collections? Got it. Okay. And again, that model has been pressure tested and it passes like the corporate practice of medicine, all that stuff.
Yeah, it has. In fact, it's very similar in some ways to the American Family Care model, which is the only other franchise in this space broadly. But we've done some things differently on the medical group side than the way they do it. But yeah, from a corporate practice of medicine, yeah, we've done all that diligence and validation. There are some nuances from state to state, but yeah.
It seems cheap, guys.
Yeah, well, that's the point.
I guess. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that seems pretty cheap.
Yeah, I mean,
Now,
look,
you need to build out the practice and get the equipment and other things. So, I mean, the total cost is a little higher.
Yeah, they're up and running. They're up and running for 250 to 300.
Right. So, what is this? A 500 square foot urgent care costs about $300,000 to $500,000, something like that.
It's about 300 all in, and including the franchise fee and including their operating capital reserves.
Got it. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And where do you?
Yeah, I mean, comparatively, I guess other urgent cares are about 1.4 to kind of open a door in like a 2,400 square foot, kind of facility.
Could be.
So we feel like it's competitive, very competitive.
Yeah, and importantly, Jason, we didn't really talk about this, but the importance of this is we can go places that a conventional urgent care probably wouldn't go. The cost, the model is so much leaner that our patient per day volume is probably half of what they need to be viable. And so these communities in North Carolina that maybe only have 15,000 people in a 5-mile radius type thing are open to us. And fortunately, that's where your independent community pharmacies are also concentrated. And that's where they're relied on as, the most accessible and sometimes the only healthcare facility in that community.
So is this a North Carolina plan? Like, is that you guys just focused on this state, or are you willing to go out of the state?
Oh, we're going to go out of the state. We're starting in North Carolina because North Carolina has a lot of ingredients that make it a good starting point. The scope of practice for mid-levels is pretty, they have a pretty broad scope in terms of no one has to sign off their charts and things like that.
Well, for FNPs.
For FNPs, correct. It's also a very, very strong state for independent community pharmacy. there's close to 500 independent community pharmacies across the state of North Carolina.
Okay.
And there's 200 in Greg's Community Enhanced Pharmacy Network. So these are 200 pharmacies that have said, we want to do clinical services.
Wow.
How do we get paid to do it?
Yep.
So we have a very ripe sort of low-hanging fruit market here. But yeah, from there, we anticipate we could get 15 to 20 locations in North Carolina.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then we would look to regional expansion and hopefully eventually national expansion.
You guys have any kind of interesting thoughts around recruiting APPs, or are you just hiring a recruiter? I mean, how are you going to find practitioners? You have 3 in this one location, so if you had 20 locations, you'd need 3 times 20.
Yeah, there is a specialty recruitment firm that we work with that really focuses on NPs.
Uh-huh.
But what we found is a lot of the candidates really like the model, and they want to get away from these, big healthcare systems, KPI driven, chased up for quality metrics type environment that they're practicing in a lot of times, and spending hours, checking boxes, sort of thing, Yeah.
Sure. And how do you guys measure quality? Because again, that the hospitals are Joint Commission accredited, and they're having to do a lot of that to participate in all kinds of different scenarios. So what does quality look like at IndyCare?
Yeah, so we're in the process of working on an accreditation through NCQA called the Patient-Centered Connected Care. And that is a specific accreditation for non-primary care practices that are committed to being part of the patient-centered medical home structure. And so there's certain processes and quality metrics that we have to have in place for that accreditation. And that's what we're focusing on for now.
That's cool. That's important. Like I think defining cost and quality are really important, because you're probably trying to compete on cost with the people in your kind of cohort. Quality is always the thing to define, because that's how people will come at you and say, well, you're an inferior practice due to X, Y, Z. And having those kind of credentials are important.
Yeah, and actually it's something we're really conscious of and looking for some help with is more broadly our data strategy, right? Because if you think about how do we impact quality? How do we impact cost of care? Well, there's some obvious ways, right? Like preventing emergency room visits because you're an acute care option. There's some less obvious ways, right? Because we have this collaborative care model where our pharmacists are engaging with those patients about their diabetes, about their congestive heart failure. So figuring out how we measure all of that together in a meaningful way.
Check out a company called Tamarind.
Tamarind?
Tamarind, like I think it's a type of a
the fruit.
A fruit or a monkey. It's something like that. Tamarind. Tamarind started by a young lady named Kat Kamaskis out of Yale, and she was like a patient health coordinator dealing with the exact things you're talking about. So this company works in data aggregation and patient care coordination and shows material cost savings.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Exactly.
Check it out.
Yeah, because normally if you're primary care, right, you just get that data back on your panel and it's measured, but we're not their medical home. So it's a little more obtuse how to capture that.
Yeah. So maybe that would be an easy plug-in for you. And I know those kind of situations pay for themselves. I'm not an investor in it, but I've done deep due diligence on the company.
That's great.
So what else? What can I do to help you guys?
So, I mean, the main thing we're focused on right now, beyond the data that I mentioned, is how to scale. We've had great success in Hillsborough, both in terms of the customer response and our ability to deliver, successfully things that this community needs and to attract patients. It's a big, I'm sure you're very aware, getting from that to a really buttoned down, tight reproducible model is, challenging. so that's what we're focused on now, is how to really codify what we're doing in a way that we can drop and reproduce at these other pharmacies. And then of course we're, to get to our benchmark levels of locations in the time frame we want to, we're going to have to capital raise as well off of that. We were planning to do that in the later part of this year off the back of these 2 locations that we were going to open in October. That's obviously been delayed, but at the same time, it's a mixed bag, right? Because while that's delayed, we've also, I think, demonstrated incredible resilience to kind of pivot and be a COVID-19 solution provider in our community on a dime. So
but I mean, is that the model? Like, are you guys going to be a COVID testing site? And
no,
or are you going to be in urgent care?
No, we're in urgent care with these other services.
I understand.
It's just right now, we're feeling the need.
Understood.
Right?
Understood. So look, I would say, go slow to go fast right now. You don't know what you don't know. I don't know if either of you have raised material amounts of money before. I don't understand how money comes into your business at the top co. Are you selling me equity? And then, what does that structure look like? How are you valuing the company? These are all discussions you probably have had, but those would be things that maybe.
Yeah, we were looking at a convertible note as this initial raise, to get from where we are with the 2 or 3 locations to about the 15. And so there's different ways we can approach that. Obviously, we have a big network of pharmacists already that we can simply go to who will understand it right away.
Yeah.
And there's other ways, but that's probably how we're going to approach this initial.
Do you have any idea of the terms of the convertible note and how much you're raising?
We're looking at about $500,000 for the initial one, just to we've hired out a financial model, and it's come back and told us that's comfortably would get us to that next break point of about 13, 14 locations.
Seems like not enough money.
Well, it doesn't take a lot, because the money to open up is not our money.
Yeah, but you have to have a lot of infrastructure. I mean, I'm seeing the 2 of you guys, and it sounds like Greg may still be working.
No, we're both full-time on this. We also have a medical director.
Okay, that's cool.
That's
Full-time?
owner. Yeah, well, no, he's not full-time.
Okay.
But he's a hospitalist that works 1 week on, 2 weeks off. So we do get a lot of time from
Who's
him.
overseeing the construction of these facilities and making sure they're done this 2
Well,
years?
that's where some of this money is going to go towards hiring those franchise business consultants.
Yeah.
That are handhold each of those locations for that opening process.
And just the model is going to be like heavy legal all the time. So
that, I mean, we've put 250, 300 in already, and a lot of that went to legal at the corporate level of all of those contracts, all of those agreements, everything being compliant, Starks, HIPAA, corporate practice medicine, etc.
I think there's like 40 some contracts that I think that we accumulated already. And as a franchise model, it's you kind of give them a little bit of leeway, but you kind of create the bumpers so they can't go too far one way or the other.
Yeah, I get it. And then how are you all thinking about your growth? So is it just if there's an interested pharmacist, you'll open up an IndyCare, or are you saying this isn't a good location for an IndyCare, so we're not going to put it in here even though the pharmacist wants to?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mentioned earlier, we've developed kind of a assessment criteria, right, of location that that has to, they have to score out on that, right, to consider going forward. Because we as a franchise, the last thing you need is dead franchises, right, that aren't producing and kind of poison the pot, right? So especially in this first round of locations, they need to be home runs.
Have you guys ever managed large franchise owners, and have you ever had to deal with that before? Or
No, but we've talked with, and we're working with some franchise or consultants that have given us a lot of stories about.
let me give you the queen of franchise management. I'm going to give her to you. Her name's Kat, Kat Cole, and Kat Cole, and check her out online, Kat Cole. She was at Hooters. She was a Hooters hostess at 17. And by the time she was 19, she was opening Hooters internationally. And by the time she was like, 25, she was like running Cinnabon and Auntie Anne's, and then she went to the Topco, and now she's like the president of like everything that you've ever seen or heard of as a franchise person, and is responsible for all the cool products and stuff. And she is like a treasure trove of anecdotes and operational moments. And so you check her out, Kat Cole. And I'm only saying that because you guys seem really cool and you're about to bash your head against a brick wall.
I've got a pretty hard head, so thank God for that.
Oh, it'll test that hard head. We'll see. Woo!
Listen, talking about
7%. You're doing it for 7%.
I did business development in countries like India for companies that had never been there before, and had a very sort of American lens on how deals are done and transactions are done. So I banged my head real hard against a lot of walls and still came out the other side. So,
you know what? The reason you came out is you loved it.
Yeah.
And if you love healthcare and you love these franchise owners and you love what you're doing, you're going to do whatever it takes to help them be successful. And I know that's why you guys are doing it. I'm just playing around a little bit with you.
Yeah.
But check out Kat Cole.
Will do.
She's real. All right. Well, look, I get it. You guys maybe raising money in the future. That's pretty cool. I'd love to look at that when it materializes further. I've obviously done some cool things in the space. I mean, we were the first healthcare organization in the United States to do a major deal with a payer, where Blue Cross Blue Shield in North Carolina invested in FastMed. And you know, I had at my kind of terminal or apex of what I was doing, we had 1,400 employees, 400 doctors and PAs, and about 127 locations. So I think I had 53 or so clinics here in North Carolina. So I've been everywhere twice to each county, and I understand the landscape pretty well. Oh, you're on mute, Franklin.
Yeah, sorry, there was some background noise. I thought it was me.
No,
no, that's great. Appreciate the offer. I mean, obviously, speaking to you is great. You've seen a lot of the things that we're going to go through. And so would love to stay connected and keep you updated on how we're progressing and when we're formalizing some of these next steps.
that'd be super cool. Look, and I wish you guys all the success in the world. It sounds like you're doing a lot of the right things. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
I think
Greg's got kids in the car with him.
He's got everything. He's headed to the beach. All right, man. I'll be in touch with you guys.
Okay.
Call me anytime.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Bye-bye.